The stars had always seemed peaceful from Earth. Children looked up at them and dreamed of distant worlds. Scientists pointed telescopes toward the heavens and wondered if humanity was alone in the universe. For centuries, that question remained unanswered. Then the Valorian Dominion arrived, and humanity learned that some questions are better left unasked. The first signal came on a Tuesday morning. Observatories across the planet detected a massive energy signature at the edge of the solar system. Within hours, that signature became a fleet. Within days, that fleet became an armada of 3,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. High Commander Zorath of the Valorian Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet grow larger on his view screen. His species had conquered 17 star systems. They had burned worlds, enslaved populations, and erased entire civilizations from existence. Earth would be no different. He broadcast his message to every communication device on the planet. His voice was cold, emotionless, and carried the weight of absolute certainty. People of Earth, I am High Commander Zorath of the Valorian Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You have 3 of your days to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will reduce your cities to ash and your oceans to steam. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. Decide. The transmission ended. Panic spread across the globe. In Geneva, the United Earth Council gathered for an emergency session. Representatives from every nation sat around a massive circular table, their faces pale with fear. Military advisors ran simulations on holographic displays, and every scenario ended the same way. Total human extinction. Admiral Nathan Cole watched the chaos from his seat at the back of the room. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. He had fought in the Mars insurrection 20 years ago. He had lost friends, soldiers, and pieces of his soul in that conflict. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. Secretary General Laura Bennett called for silence. She was a tall woman with sharp features and a voice that commanded attention. She had led humanity through 3 global crises, but this was different. This was not a problem the politics could solve. Admiral Cole, she said, give us your assessment. Cole stood slowly and walked to the center of the room. Every eye followed him. Our combined fleet consists of 212 vessels, he began. The enemy has 3,000. Their smallest ship outguns our largest battle cruiser. If we engage them directly, we will be destroyed in approximately 4 hours. Ground defenses are meaningless against orbital bombardment. In simple terms, we cannot win this war through conventional means. The room erupted in shouting. Representatives demanded solutions, pointed fingers, and argued about surrender terms. Cole waited patiently until Bennett restored order. You said conventional means, she noted. That implies there are unconventional options. Cole nodded slowly. He had hoped this day would never come. He had prayed that humanity would never face a threat so severe that it required this response. But hope and prayer meant nothing against 3,000 alien warships. In 2089, after the Kepler incident, a secret program was initiated, Cole explained. It was funded by a coalition of governments, but existed outside any official record. No paper trail, no public knowledge, no oversight. Only 12 people on Earth know it exists, and I am one of them. He activated a holographic display showing a facility buried deep beneath the ice of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The structure was massive, cold, and completely unmarked on any map. We identified certain individuals across the global population, Cole continued. People with very specific characteristics. They were not soldiers. They were not assassins. They were something else entirely. Bennett leaned forward. What kind of characteristics? the ability to commit extreme violence without psychological trauma, complete emotional stability under impossible pressure, genius-level tactical thinking combined with physical capabilities that exceeded normal human limits, and most importantly, moral reasoning that remained intact regardless of what they were asked to do. A representative from the European Union raised his hand. "You are describing weapons, Admiral. Human weapons." "Yes," Cole agreed. "We call them the Grave Wardens. There are 47 of them. They have been in cryogenic sleep for 3 years, waiting for a threat that justified their use. I believe we have found that threat." Bennett's face had gone pale. "What exactly do these Grave Wardens do?" Cole met her eyes without flinching. "They execute. Not armies, not populations, but specific targets, leadership, command structures, the minds that control enemy forces. They were designed for one purpose: the complete and systematic elimination of any species that threatens human extinction." Silence fell over the chamber. The weight of Cole's words pressed down on everyone present. A representative from China spoke quietly. "You are asking us to approve the deployment of executioners. Not soldiers who fight with honor, but killers who operate in shadows." "I am asking you to survive," Cole replied. "The Valorians have given us 3 days. We cannot build a fleet in 3 days. We cannot negotiate with beings who see us as insects. We cannot run because there is nowhere to go. But we can send 47 people into that armada and tear out its heart." Bennett stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Geneva continued its daily routine. People walked to work, children played in parks, and life went on as if the universe had not just announced humanity's death sentence. "How confident are you that this will work?" she asked without turning around. "The Grave Wardens have never failed a mission," Cole answered. "They have operated in secret for decades, handling threats that the public never knew existed. They are the most lethal human beings ever created, and they are completely loyal to the survival of our species." Bennett turned to face him. "And what happens to them afterward? These executioners of yours? They go back to sleep. They wait for the next time they are needed. They live in the space between wars, dreaming of nothing, feeling nothing, until humanity calls them again." She closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, her decision was made. "Wake them up, Admiral. Wake them all up." Cole saluted and left the chamber. As he walked toward the transport that would take him to Europa, he thought about the 47 men and women sleeping beneath the ice. He thought about what they would do to the Valorian fleet. He thought about the rivers of alien blood that would flow through those massive warships. And for the first time since the Armada arrived, Admiral Nathan Cole smiled. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity a deadline, thinking it would inspire fear and submission. They did not understand that deadlines were just motivation for the human race. They did not understand that Earth's true weapons were not ships or missiles or armies. Earth's true weapons were sleeping on Europa. And they were about to wake up very, very angry. The cryogenic chamber was cold and dark. 47 pods lined the walls like coffins made of glass and metal. Inside each pod, a human being slept without dreams, their bodies frozen at the edge of death, waiting for the signal that would bring them back to life. Daniel Price opened his eyes. The fog cleared slowly from his vision. He heard the hiss of the pod lid opening and felt warm air touch his skin for the first time in 3 years. His muscles ached. His throat was dry. His mind was sharp and clear, because that was how he had been designed. He sat up and looked around the chamber. Other pods were opening. Other wardens were waking. The facility's lights had turned from red to white, which meant only one thing: humanity faced an extinction-level threat. Daniel climbed out of his pod and stood on the cold metal floor. He was 34 years old, though his body had been modified to age more slowly. His hair was dark brown, his eyes were gray, and his face carried no expression. He had learned long ago that expressions were a luxury he could not afford. He remembered his childhood in rural Kansas. He remembered the farm where he grew up, the smell of wheat fields in summer, and his mother's voice calling him for dinner. He also remembered the day the recruiters came, when he was 16 years old. They had given him tests, asked him strange questions, and shown him images that would have made normal people vomit or cry. Daniel had felt nothing. Not because he was broken, but because his mind processed violence differently than other humans. The recruiters had called it a gift. His mother had called it a curse. Daniel called it what it was, a tool. 3 years, said a voice beside him. Feels like a long nap. Katie Morgan stood next to her pod, stretching her arms above her head. She was shorter than Daniel, with brown hair and a face that was easy to forget. That forgettable quality was one of her greatest weapons. She could walk into any room, any country, any situation, and no one would remember she had been there until it was too late. How bad! She asked Daniel access the facility's information system through a terminal on the wall. Data scrolled across the screen. Fleet compositions, invasion timelines, estimated casualties. Alien armada, he said. 3,000 ships. Billions of soldiers. They want to burn Earth. Katie nodded slowly. She did not look afraid, because fear was not something she experienced in dangerous situations. Like Daniel, she had been selected for her unique psychological profile. She could feel love, happiness, sadness, and joy. But in moments of crisis, her emotions became quiet, and her mind became a perfect machine. When do we leave? She asked. Soon. The other wardens assembled in the briefing room. There were 47 of them in total, ranging in age from 25 to 52. Each one had a story. Each one had a reason they were here. Some had been killers before the program found them, people who had taken lives and discovered they felt no guilt. Others had lived normal lives until testing revealed their hidden potential. Tyler Brooks was the youngest. He was 25, with blonde hair and a smile that could charm anyone. Before the program, he had been a paramedic in Boston. He had saved hundreds of lives, but during a hostage situation, he had also killed 4 armed men with his bare hands to protect a child. The police had called him a hero. The program had called him a candidate. Maria Santos was the oldest. She was 52, with silver hair and scars on her hands from decades of work. She had been a surgeon before joining the wardens. Her knowledge of anatomy made her especially effective at ending lives quickly and quietly. Colonel Eric Grant entered the briefing room. He was their military liaison, one of the few outsiders who knew the wardens existed. His face was grim as he activated the holographic display. 2 days ago, an alien fleet entered our solar system, he began. They call themselves the Valorian Dominion. They have conquered 17 star systems and destroyed countless civilizations. They have given Earth 3 days to surrender. If we refuse, they will kill everyone on the planet. The wardens listened in silence. None of them showed any reaction. Your mission is simple, Grant continued. The Valorian command structure operates through a strict hierarchy. High Commander Zorith leads the fleet from his flagship. 12 hierarchs control different sections of the armada. Below them are 347 secondary command nodes. If we eliminate this leadership, the entire fleet will collapse into chaos. He displayed a diagram of the Valorian flagship. It was enormous, nearly 5 kilometers long, with thousands of rooms and corridors. You will be deployed via stealth insertion craft, Grant explained. Once inside the enemy fleet, you will split into 13 cells. Each cell will target specific leadership elements. All targets must be eliminated within a 4-hour window to prevent the Valorians from reorganizing. Tyler raised his hand. What's the enemy force composition? The flagship alone contains 15,000 Valorian soldiers, plus crew. The entire fleet has approximately 4 million combatants. A low whistle escaped from one of the wardens. 47 against 4 million, Tyler said. Those are interesting odds. Daniel stepped forward. We are not fighting 4 million. We are executing specific targets. The 4 million are obstacles, nothing more. He looked at his fellow wardens, meeting each of their eyes in turn. The Valorians think they understand war. They believe that victory comes from superior numbers and firepower. They have never faced an enemy like us. They do not know what humans are capable of when survival is at stake. Katie moved to stand beside him. We trained for this. We were born for this. Every simulation, every mission, every year of our lives has led to this moment. The aliens came here expecting to find sheep. They are going to find wolves. Maria Santos spoke quietly. And after the wolves have finished their work, then we go back to sleep, Daniel replied. And we hope that we never need to wake up again. The wardens began their preparations. They checked their equipment, reviewed their target assignments, and said silent goodbyes to the normal lives they had given up long ago. Dr. Amanda Voss watched them from an observation room above the briefing chamber. She was the architect of the Grave Warden program, the neuropsychologist who had spent 30 years studying the thin line between protector and predator. She had created these people, shaped them, and sent them into darkness again and again. Tonight, she would send them to save the human race. Are they ready? Admiral Cole asked, standing beside her. Voss nodded slowly. They are always ready. That is what makes them terrifying, and what makes them human. She watched Daniel Price lead his team toward the hangar bay, where the stealth craft waited to carry them into the heart of the alien armada. They choose to be, she said softly. Every single time, they choose to be human. That is why they are our greatest hope and our darkest secret. They can become monsters so easily, but they do not. They remain who they are, no matter what we ask them to do. Cole was silent for a moment. God help the Valorians. Voss shook her head. God has nothing to do with this, Admiral. Tonight, humanity handles its own problems. The hangar doors opened. The stealth craft rose from the ice of Europa and turned toward the distant stars, where 3,000 alien warships waited to destroy everything humanity had ever built. The grave. Wardens were awake. And death was coming for the Valorian Dominion. The stealth craft Shadowfall moved through space like a ghost. Its hull was covered in adaptive camouflage that bent light and sensor waves around its frame. To the Valorian detection systems, it appeared as nothing more than empty space, a tiny pocket of darkness drifting between the stars. Inside the craft, 47 grave wardens sat in silence. They wore specter suits, form-fitting armor that enhanced their strength and speed while providing protection against most weapons. Their faces were hidden behind featureless masks that displayed tactical information directly to their eyes. Daniel Price reviewed the mission parameters on his heads-up display. The Valorian flagship was called the Eternal Conquest, and it was the largest vessel in the Armada. 5 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, with enough firepower to crack a planet in half. It was home to High Commander Zorth and his 12 hierarchs, the leadership caste that controlled the entire invasion force. Daniel's cell would target Zorth directly. Other cells would handle the hierarchs and secondary command nodes spread throughout the fleet. If everything went according to plan, the Valorian leadership would cease to exist within 4 hours. If something went wrong, 47 humans would die very far from home. Katie sat beside him, her eyes closed behind her mask. She was not sleeping, just conserving energy. Daniel had worked with her for 15 years, and he knew her habits better than he knew his own. You are thinking too loud, she said without opening her eyes. I am reviewing the mission. You have reviewed it 43 times. You know every corridor, every guard rotation, every weakness in their security systems. What you are actually doing is worrying. Daniel did not deny it. There are many variables we cannot control. Katie opened her eyes and turned to face him. There are always variables we cannot control. That is why they send us instead of normal soldiers. Normal soldiers need certainty. We operate in chaos. She was right, of course. The Grave Wardens have been designed specifically for situations where planning could only take you so far. Their true strength was not their training or their equipment. It was their ability to adapt, to improvise, to find solutions in the space between heartbeats. The pilot's voice came through their communication system. Approaching target zone. Insertion in 15 minutes. Daniel stood and faced his team. His cell consisted of 8 wardens, each one selected for their specific skills. Kay was his second-in-command and infiltration specialist. Tyler Brooks was their combat medic and close-quarters expert. Maria Santos handled enemy anatomy and targeted eliminations. The others filled roles ranging from technical support to heavy weapons. "You know the mission," Daniel said. "We enter through Maintenance Port 7. Move through the lower decks to avoid main traffic corridors, and reach the command center within 90 minutes. Once there, we eliminate High Commander Zorath and any Hierarchs present. We do not stop until every target is down." Tyler raised a question. "Rules of engagement?" "There are none. Anyone who stands between us and the objective dies. Anyone who runs away is allowed to live. We are not here to fight a war. We are here to cut off the head of the snake." Maria spoke quietly. "The Valorians have never faced ground combat against humans. They will not expect our methods." "That is our advantage," Daniel agreed. "They think in terms of armies and battles. They do not understand surgical strikes. By the time they realize what is happening, it will be too late." The Shadowfall slowed as it approached the Eternal Conquest. The massive flagship filled the viewport, its hull bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Lights flickered along its surface like stars in a metal sky. Somewhere inside that enormous vessel, Zorath was probably sleeping peacefully, dreaming of the world he would destroy tomorrow, that he would not live to see the sunrise. The insertion was silent and precise. The Shadowfall matched the flagship's rotation perfectly, allowing the Wardens to exit through a pressurized tube that connected directly to Maintenance Port 7. Within seconds, all 47 Wardens were inside the enemy ship. The stealth craft pulled away and disappeared into the darkness. Waiting for the extraction signal, Daniel led his cell through the narrow maintenance corridors. The air smelled strange, a mixture of recycled atmosphere and alien chemicals. The walls were covered in symbols he did not recognize, probably navigation markers for the crew. They encountered their first patrol after 3 minutes. 6 Valorian soldiers walked down a side corridor, their weapons holstered, their attention focused on some conversation among themselves. They were tall creatures, merely 2 meters in height, with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Right now, their skin showed calm blues and greens, the colors of routine duty. Daniel raised his hand, signaling his team to stop. He watched the patrol through a gap in the corridor junction, calculating distances and angles. The Valorians would pass directly in front of their position in approximately 10 seconds. He held up 6 fingers, then pointed at himself and Katie. The others understood. They would handle this together. When the patrol reached the junction, Daniel and Katie moved as one. Their monofilament blades caught the light for just a fraction of a second before finding their targets. 6 Valorians died before any of them could process what was happening. Their bodies collapsed to the floor without a sound, their skin flickering through colors of confusion and fear before going dark. Tyler stepped forward and checked the corridor ahead. Clear. They continued moving. Over the next hour, Daniel's cell eliminated 37 Valorian soldiers. Each encounter was brief, efficient, and completely silent. The aliens never had time to raise an alarm. Their security systems never detected a threat. To the ship's sensors, everything appeared normal. But the Valorians were beginning to notice something wrong. Communication checks went unanswered. Patrols failed to report in. Officers sent inquiries to sections of the ship that had gone mysteriously quiet. Katie monitored enemy communications through a device built into her suit. They are getting nervous. Multiple departments reporting contact failures. How long until they realize what is happening? 20 minutes, maybe less. They are still assuming technical malfunctions. Daniel increased his pace. Then we have 20 minutes to reach the command center. They moved faster now, abandoning caution for speed. The corridors blurred past them as they climbed through access shafts and service tunnels. Occasionally, they encountered resistance. A security checkpoint here, a surprised officer there. Each obstacle was removed with brutal efficiency. In one section, they found a group of Valorian civilians, probably technical staff or administrators. The aliens froze when they saw the masked humans emerge from the shadows, their skins cycling through colors of terror. Daniel looked at them for a long moment. They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were just people who had the bad luck to be on the wrong ship at the wrong time. "Go," he said, pointing down the corridor away from their route. "Run. Tell no one." The civilians fled without looking back. Tyler watched them go. Soft spot, boss? Executing unarmed civilians does not help the mission. Mercy is efficient. Katie smiled behind her mask. That is why you are the leader. You still know the difference between necessary violence and cruelty. They reached the command center level exactly 87 minutes after insertion. Above them, through layers of metal and circuitry, High Commander Zorath sat on his throne. Believing himself to be completely safe, he was about to learn the truth about humanity. About the things they created when survival demanded. About the executioners. They kept sleeping beneath the ice of distant moons. Daniel gathered his team at the final checkpoint. Beyond this door was the command center. Beyond this door was the end of the Valorian invasion. No survivors in the command room, he said quietly. Make it fast. Make it permanent. Then he opened the door, and the Grave Wardens entered to do what they were born to do. High Commander Zorath sat upon his throne and watched Earth rotate slowly on the main view screen. The blue planet looked peaceful from this distance, its ocean sparkling in the light of its yellow sun. In approximately 18 hours, that peaceful view would become a burning hell. He had destroyed many worlds in his long career. Some had been beautiful, filled with forests and rivers and creatures that sang in the morning light. Others had been harsh and barren, home to species that fought desperately for survival. In the end, all of them had fallen the same way. Fire from orbit, followed by silence. Earth would be no different. His aide, a young officer named Vorin, approached the throne with a data tablet. Vorin was ambitious, intelligent, and completely loyal. These qualities would ensure his rapid promotion once Earth was conquered. High Commander, we have lost contact with several sections of the ship. Engineering believes it may be a communication malfunction caused by solar interference. Zorath waved his hand dismissively. Have them investigate and report back. Yes, High Commander. Vorin walked away to deliver the orders. Zorath returned his attention to the view screen. The humans had sent no response to his ultimatum. No surrender, no negotiation request, no desperate pleas for mercy. Their silence puzzled him. Every other species had reacted to the Dominion's arrival with immediate panic. The humans seemed almost calm. Perhaps they were simply too primitive to understand the danger they faced. Around the command center, His 12 hierarchs monitored their respective sections of the fleet. Each one commanded hundreds of ships and millions of soldiers. Together, they represented the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. Nothing could threaten them here, in the heart of their armada. Zorath noticed something strange. The lights in the command center seemed dimmer than usual. Shadows gathered in the corners of the room, deeper and darker than they should be. He blinked and looked again. The shadows were moving. Hierarch Vothus was the first to die. He sat at his console, reviewing troop deployments for the coming invasion, when a blade emerged from the darkness behind him and passed through his throat. He made no sound as he fell forward onto his keyboard, his iridescent skin flickering through colors of shock and then going dark. Zorath opened his mouth to shout a warning, but the words never came. All around him, his hierarchs were dying. Shadows detached from the walls and became masked figures in black armor. Blades flashed in the dim light. Bodies hit the floor with soft THUDS dot in less than 30 seconds. Every hierarch in the command center was dead. Varn turned at the sound of falling bodies and found himself face to face with a human woman. She was small, unremarkable, with brown hair visible beneath her mask. Her blade was already moving before Voran could reach for his weapon. He collapsed with a confused expression frozen on his face. Zorath finally found his voice. "Guards! Guards!" No one answered. The corridors outside the command center were silent, filled with the bodies of soldiers who had died without ever seeing their attackers. A human male stepped into the light. His armor was stained purple with Valorian blood, but his movements were calm and unhurried. He removed his mask, revealing a face that was surprisingly ordinary. Brown hair, gray eyes, no visible scars or markings. He could have been anyone. That was perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. "High Commander Zorath," the human said. "Earth has received your ultimatum." Zorath reached for the sidearm at his hip. His hand never made it. The small woman appeared beside him with impossible speed, and her blade removed his hand at the wrist. Purple blood sprayed across the deck as Zorath screamed in pain and shock. "What are you?" he gasped, falling to his knees. His skin cycled through colors of agony and fear, unable to settle on any single emotion. The human male knelt to meet Zorath's eyes. His expression was empty, neither angry nor pleased. He looked like a worker completing a routine task, nothing more. "We are not soldiers," he said. "Soldiers follow rules. Soldiers take prisoners. Soldiers show mercy to the defeated. We do none of these things. Then what are you? We are what happens when humanity decides that a species does not deserve to exist anymore. We are the executioners. We are the answer to threats like you." Zorath's skin went pale gray, the color of absolute terror. "You cannot kill us all. There are millions of us. Billions across our territory." The human smiled slightly. It was not a pleasant expression. "We have killed more," he said simply. "Your fleet dies tonight. Every ship, every station, every command center. When we are finished, you will be nothing but a warning to other species who might think about threatening our home." Zorath tried to speak, to bargain, to beg. The blade moved faster than his thoughts. Across the Valorian armada, similar scenes played out on 1,000 different stages. The 12 hierarch vessels fell within 20 minutes, their leadership eliminated by warden cells that moved through their corridors like ghosts. Secondary command nodes were targeted in systematic waves, each one falling silent before it could warn the others. The Valorian military operated through a rigid hierarchy. Orders flowed from the top down, and soldiers were trained to wait for commands rather than act independently. This structure had served them well in countless conquests, where overwhelming force made independent thinking unnecessary. Now, that structure became their doom. Without Zorath, Without the hierarchs, without the command nodes, 4 million Valorian soldiers suddenly found themselves without leadership. Ships that had operated in perfect coordination began to drift apart. Squadrons that had known their roles with absolute certainty now waited for orders that would never come. Confusion spread through the fleet like a disease. Admiral Nathan Cole had positioned Earth's fleet at a careful distance, waiting for exactly this moment. 200 human vessels faced 3,000 Valorian warships, odds that should have guaranteed annihilation. But the Valorian ships were not fighting back. They were running, hiding, bumping into each other in the chaos of sudden command failure. All ships, engage, Cole ordered. The human fleet struck like a hammer against glass. Valorian vessels exploded under concentrated fire, their crews too disorganized to mount effective defenses. Ships attempted to flee, only to discover that Warden teams had sabotaged their jump drives during the infiltration. They were trapped in a killing zone of their own making. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the greatest military force the Valorian Dominion had ever assembled was nothing but debris and frozen corpses drifting through space on the eternal conquest. Daniel Price stood in the command center surrounded by dead hierarchs and looked out at the destruction. Through the view screen, he could see Valorian ships burning, their hulls torn apart by human weapons. Katie joined him at the viewport. Mission complete. All targets eliminated. Casualties? 2 wardens injured, none dead. The enemy never knew what hit them. Daniel nodded slowly. He felt nothing in particular about the thousands of aliens he had helped kill tonight. They had threatened his species with extinction. They had planned to burn his planet and murder his people. In his mind, their deaths were not violence, but arithmetic. Threat identified, threat eliminated, humanity preserved. Signal the shadow fall, he said. Tell them we are ready for extraction. Outside, the debris field continued to expand. A graveyard of alien ambition floating in the cold emptiness of space. Earth had been given 3 days to surrender. Earth had responded in 4 hours, and the universe had learned something important about the small blue planet and the strange creatures who called it home. Humans did not deploy armies against extinction-level threats. They deployed something far worse. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Valorian Armada. The debris field still orbited at the edge of the solar system, a permanent reminder of what had happened to the last species that threatened Earth. Salvage teams picked through the wreckage, recovering technology and materials that would help humanity prepare for future encounters. The galaxy had been watching. News of the Valorian defeat spread through interstellar communication networks faster than any ship could travel. A species that had conquered 17 star systems, that had burned worlds and enslaved billions, had been completely destroyed by a single planet. Not in a great battle of fleets, but in a single night of targeted assassinations. The Dominion's remaining territories fell into chaos. Without their military hierarchy, the conquered systems began to revolt. Slave populations rose against their masters. Puppet governments collapsed. Within weeks, the empire that had taken centuries to build was crumbling from the inside. On the Valorian homeworld, a new ruling council had formed from the civilian leadership that survived the military's destruction. They were politicians, administrators, and bureaucrats who had never expected to be in charge. Now they faced the impossible task of dealing with the species that had just demonstrated its willingness and ability to wipe them out. Ambassador Scott Patterson arrived on the Valorian homeworld aboard a human diplomatic vessel. He was a tall man with gray hair and a calm face that revealed nothing of his thoughts. Behind him stood 2 figures in black armor, their faces hidden behind featureless masks. They were not guards. They were a message. The Valorian Council chamber was a massive hall built from polished stone and decorated with symbols of conquest. Statues of ancient military heroes lined the walls, their eyes now seeming to accuse rather than inspire. The counselors sat at a curved table, their skin cycling nervously through shades of anxiety and submission. Senior Counselor Lyrith rose as the human delegation entered. She was old by Valorian standards, with faded iridescent skin and eyes that had seen many years of political maneuvering. Nothing in her experience had prepared her for this moment. "Ambassador Patterson," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "We welcome you to Valoria and hope that this meeting will lead to peaceful resolution between our peoples." Patterson did not smile. "I appreciate the welcome, Counselor, but let us not pretend that this is a meeting between equals. Your species attempted to exterminate mine. You failed. Now you will listen to our terms." He placed a data crystal on the table. It glowed faintly in the dim light of the chamber. "This contains records of your armada's final hours. Every ship that burned, every commander that died, every moment of your fleet's destruction. We suggest your population study them carefully. Learn what your leadership's arrogance cost you." Lyrith's skin flickered through several shades of discomfort. "We understand that mistakes were made. The previous military leadership acted without proper civilian oversight. We are prepared to offer reparations and guarantees of future peaceful relations. Reparations are not negotiable, Counselor. They are mandatory, as are several other conditions." Patterson activated a holographic display that projected from the data crystal. Text appeared in both human and Valorian script, outlining the terms of surrender. "First, you will dismantle your entire military structure. Every warship, every weapon platform, every military academy. You will be permitted a small defensive force for internal security, nothing more. Any attempt to rebuild offensive capabilities will be met with immediate response." Murmurs spread through the council. A younger counselor spoke up, his skin showing hints of defiance. "You expect us to leave ourselves defenseless? Other species will see us as easy prey." The masked figures behind Patterson shifted slightly. The young counselor went silent. "Second," Patterson continued, "you will pay reparations to every species you have conquered. Every world you burned, every population you enslaved, every civilization you destroyed. The debt will be calculated based on the scope of your crimes, and it will take generations to repay." Lyrith closed her eyes briefly. "And the third condition? You will submit to human oversight for the next 100 years. Our observers will be present on your homeworld and in your remaining territories. They will ensure compliance with these terms and report any violations directly to Earth." Another counselor, a female with silver-streaked skin, leaned forward. "This is not diplomacy. This is conquest without invasion." Patterson met her eyes calmly. "You invaded our system with 3,000 warships. You promised to burn our cities and boil our oceans. You gave us 3 days to surrender to total annihilation. We responded by sending 47 individuals into your fleet, and 4 hours later, your entire armada was dead." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We could have sent those same individuals here, to this world. We could have eliminated your ruling class, your military leadership, your infrastructure. We chose not to. That choice was mercy. Do not make us regret it." Lyrith stood slowly, her skin settling into a uniform shade of submission gray. "We accept your terms, Ambassador. The Valorian people will comply with all conditions." "Wise decision, Counselor." Patterson gathered the data crystal and turned to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back at the assembled council. "One final thing. If any Valorian vessel ever enters Sol System again without explicit permission from Earth, we will not send executioners to your fleet. We will send them here, to your cities, your homes, your families. And we will not stop until your species exists only in history books. Remember that. Remember it always." He left the chamber. The masked figures followed, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Back on Europa, the Grave Wardens prepared to return to cryogenic sleep. Their mission was complete. The threat to humanity had been eliminated. Now they would rest, dreaming of nothing until the next time they were needed. Daniel Price stood in front of his pod, watching the others enter their chambers one by one. Dr. Amanda Voss approached him, her footsteps soft on the metal floor. "The galaxy is talking about you," she said. "They call you demons, monsters, nightmares given flesh. Some species are already sending diplomatic envoys to Earth, terrified that they might be next." "Good," Daniel replied. "Fear is efficient. Fear keeps people from making stupid decisions." "Is that all you feel about what you have done? That it was efficient?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the Valorians he had killed, the terror in their eyes as they died. He thought about the children on Earth who would grow up never knowing how close they had come to extinction. He thought about the weight of lives taken and lives saved, the terrible mathematics of survival. "I feel what I always feel," he said finally. "Nothing during the mission, everything afterward. But I have learned to carry it. That is why I'm still here." Voss nodded slowly. "What do you call yourselves, Daniel? When you are not being executioners, when you are not being weapons, what do you think you are?" Daniel smiled faintly as he climbed into his pod. The cold of the cryo chamber began to seep into his bones. "We are gardeners, Doctor. The universe is full of weeds that want to choke out the flowers. Sometimes you have to pull them up by the roots." The pod lid began to close over him. "Sleep well, Daniel," Voss said softly. "I always do. The guilty rest easy, Doctor. It is the innocent who suffer nightmares." The chamber sealed. The lights dimmed, and beneath the ice of Europa, humanity's executioners returned to their dreamless sleep. Above them, Earth continued its endless orbit around the sun. Children played in parks. Farmers tended their fields. People fell in love, argued with neighbors, and worried about small things that seemed important at the time. None of them knew about the 47 men and women sleeping on a distant moon. None of them knew how close they had come to dying in fire and darkness. But somewhere out there, in the vast emptiness between stars, other species were learning a new lesson about the small blue planet and its strange inhabitants. Humanity was not to be touched, and those who forgot that lesson would meet the Grave Wardens. Eventually, everyone did.